fuck this. Let's do actual real business. Let's not be like all these Miami little guru kids that are making, okay, 50, 100, 250K a month, but they're not building anything of value. Let's build an actual corporation, an actual business that can last for 20, 30, 40 years and build generational wealth. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, brother. We
All right.
are live.
Let's go.
How are we doing, Tamir?
Doing amazing.
Cheers,
Amazing.
brother. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for grabbing this amazing place here in Marbella.
Yeah.
I think the last time we spoke, obviously a lot different setting. We were on a Zoom call as we were used to at that time.
Was so bad.
Going through 100 a day and then decided to sit down and record one of them, which was awesome. Were you in Marbella at that time?
Yeah, I was.
So that was your first time
No, that was like my second time. No, actually, maybe third time here.
That was your third time trip.
Yeah.
That was your third trip.
Sure.
And now you're pretty much, you're going to call it home base because you're always traveling around, but essentially home base.
Yep.
Why is that? Just to kind of set this setting. Like, why Marbella? Why Puerto Banús?
So I'll tell you why. Number one is you have nature. So I was staying in an Airbnb tonight, and I think I'm gonna stay there for the next like couple weeks. And you go outside, it looks like you're in a freaking jungle. So much nature, and it feels like you're kind of in Bali, even though I've never been in Bali, but that's how I would imagine it. And then you go 15-minute Uber, and you're like in Puerto Banús, $100 million worth of yachts, supercars, this lifestyle, cool.
Yeah.
With all these distractions, but then you also have that aspect of the nature where you can lock in and really feel present. Because I feel like in places like Dubai, you just feel too detached from yourself and detached kind of from reality. But that nature actually grounds you. So here you kind of have a mix, and the networking here is pretty good. Like now, a lot of young people are moving into Marbella, but usually, if you think about it, not a lot of young people can be in Marbella because it is more expensive. Because it is more expensive, you have to be doing something with your life. You have to be making good money. So that's what makes it a good place. It kind of increases the barrier to entry for everyone. So whoever's here, you know, they have to be doing something interesting, and they always know one person. So
yeah. And have you ever been to Miami?
yeah, I've been to Miami like a month ago. I loved it.
Yeah. So very similar. Because like we know, like I lived there for a while, and it was like I always told people it's the place to go in the sense of everybody there has to be doing something. Because like you said, like that barrier to entry, you couldn't survive out there, you know, for a long period of time unless you're constantly hustling. And like the networking side of it's cool, but it's also the environment. It's
definitely the environment.
Like you just feel like even just showing up here, all I want to do is get here and work and like kind of live up to it. So speaking of like living up to it and working, what are we most excited about present day?
Okay, so we're most excited about transitioning out of the information coaches industry and getting into doing actual real business with real companies. And I, exactly like you said about Miami, when I came to Miami, I realized I was with a good friend of mine that he's now a partner in our firm, that fuck this. Let's do actual real business. Let's not be like all these Miami little guru kids that are making, okay, 50, 100, 250K a month, but they're not building anything of value. Let's build an actual corporation, an actual business that can last for 20, 30, 40 years and build generational wealth. And I think that everyone, that's what they want at the core, but they don't believe that they can. They don't have that delusional belief that they can. And, you know, there's a million ways to solve that, but we're just building that right now, transitioning out of the info space, using our info-based tactics and new age insights applied into actual real companies. And once you do that, man, you get such good results. Like we just had this idea got planted in my head in Miami when I was early with my friend Itai, that's not a partner in our firm. And we're just going out to Chipotle, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I was just on the phone. We just did a $5 million deal. I was like, $5 million deal? What? Just like that, bro? You didn't even tell me? What are you talking about? Yeah. It's like most info guys, to make that in personal profit, you probably have to work, like realistically, if you're average info guy, you probably have to work like 10, 15 years. Like, because think about that. Because you have to spend all that money on lifestyle to just fund the courses again and, you know, to get more clients into the courses. Yeah. So I realized that and I was like, oh shit. So that kind of broke a belief. And then when I went back to, I was in New Jersey, staying with my great uncle for a bit. He's pretty old. So I was just realizing, oh shit, this is actually possible. What can I do? And then my subconscious kind of manifested those actions because I knew that was possible. So I started to find ways on how to turn that into my reality. Next thing you know it, I'm flying to Madrid, slinging, you know, putting together this puzzle, putting together this deal, and just close a 6-figure 100K deal. And like, that's going to be first of many. We get in there, boom, fix their entire outbound. I kind of go into this, and they're going to be a client for life. And now it's like 100K deal. Like, come on, I want to be doing something bigger. I have a meeting right after this. We're not gonna. I can maybe move it, but it's at 2. And this is a guy with a publicly traded company, market cap of $365 million, and I set up the right strategic partnerships. That he sent me an email, through a strategic partnership and the referral partner. Hey, our founder and CEO would like to have a chat with you later. Send over your calendar. And like, they just raised $100 million to expand to the UAE and other markets. And of course, they're going to pay me 1%, 3% of that to help with the most important aspect of their business, which is sales. And the fact is that I believe that I can actually help them with that. Not because of my own track record. Yeah, cool. But I'm borrowing track record and I'm borrowing credibility and experience and talent from a board of advisors, from a team that I'm building. Yeah. So it's not like, oh shit, now I have to deliver on them. I'm not sure. It's like, oh, I'm sure we can because I have the right team to do so. And I built the right board of advisors to have that credibility, to be able to, for them to see me as an authority. I don't see him as an authority, honestly. The CEO is like, he could, I don't really care. Yeah, he's cool. Like, I respect him, but I don't he has a big company, but I don't know what their operations like. I don't really respect it. I don't see him above me.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, the CEO is not necessarily always the owner. I mean, there's even historic numbers where like you look at what the founder of Apple makes versus the CEO of Apple, and there's about 100x difference on that aspect. So you really came into this with like you kind of focused. You knew you had the skill set, and you started focusing on leverage. Yeah. So talk to me about gaining that leverage.
Okay, so here's the thesis, all right? You have a service. You have inputs that you do through a process. You have inputs that you do to a company, to a client. Now, you can do sales consulting like I did for people making $10K a month and increase their close rate by 10%, 20%, thus increase their overall sales and cash collected by 20%. And if someone's making 10K a month, cool, you're going to make them a 2K a month extra. What is that, 24K a year? Yeah. Maybe you could charge 10% of that, rule of 10%, 2,400 over 12 months with the exact same work and arguably a bit more because they're newer and they're more of a pain in the ass. But if you use that exact same skill set of sales consulting, there's a little nuances. You have to get a bit better at this, your corporate etiquette, all this stuff. But if you do that exact same thing to a company that's doing 10 million a year and then you increase it by 10%, you make them an extra 2 million a year. They're going to pay you 200,000 of that like that. It's a no-brainer.
And like you hit on, like what I think a lot of people probably pulled to is that company made it to 10 million a year without your, call it info product insights on how to, scale teams fast, because like you're scaling these info products so fast, and like you were finding all these different like holes and stuff like that. And then you apply it to a company that's built it, let's call it the old fashioned way. Yeah. And they're looking for new ideas. They're looking for the world is, I talked about this a few times on this trip, where it's like, there's guys that they learn the skill and then they coach the skill after like a year of knowing the skill. And then they're making so much money off the coaching. They stop applying the skill. The market doesn't stop just because you decided to start coaching. The market is going, the way you did a short form content agency 12 months ago is not the way you run a short form, let's call it clipping agency now. That whole market turned on its head. So anybody who thought they were teaching short form content or teaching content management, whatever, if they stopped persisting in the game, then their new clients are not getting any new value. These guys are all learning the old way. They're going to face the old problems. They're going to hit like a 10K a month ceiling. Like they're not going to grow and expand. So I'm really glad you hit on that but I want to talk about like the specifics in that. What did you see that worked so well in the info space or in the sales consulting space that you're now getting ready to apply to these bigger companies?
So I'll tell you the thesis, right? So what I've seen in common is that these corporations, these bigger companies, 8, 9 figure established companies have been around for 10 years. They already have VC backed funding. They have the organizational structure. They have the structure. They have the communication. They're professional. But everything looks good from the outside. When you look in the inside and you see the actual KPIs and the little tactics that they're using, it's like, this can be optimized. So they have the organizational structure, but not the new age tactics. Now, info guys, they had the new age tactics, but they have no structure. They're operating out of WhatsApp. They don't even have Zapier automations. Like, they're so messy, unprofessional, all over the place. They don't even track their P&L. Like, they don't even know what their P&L is. Most info guys are secretly unprofitable every month, but they don't know because they're just looking at their Stripe dashboard that month, but they don't know they actually ended up spending more than that. So when you take the new age tactics that you use in info, okay, and apply them with the organizational structure that this corporate has, it's amazing. I'll give you example, but before I do, the reason that info guys have such new age tactics that work so well, especially when applied in these B2B companies, is because the info space is the most volatile, sophisticated, and short-term market that I've ever seen. And because it's so volatile, meaning, ups and downs, revenue-wise, trends, etc., and because it's so short-term, meaning what worked in Q3 of 2024 doesn't work in Q1 of 2025, what worked 3 weeks ago, an outreach message that worked for 3 days, it worked 3 days ago, but it doesn't work now because the market is also kind of small. We're all just selling to each other, sending money to each other's bank account, and it's just kind of like a cycle. Because we had what info guys did to survive in that volatile, short-term, and sophisticated market, the insights that they had to find out because of the market conditions, once they're applied in these B2B companies that are more long-term, that have more structure, it does wonders. And I'll give you now the example. So for this company specifically that we're working with, B2B SaaS company, been around for 10 years, raised, multiple 8 figures. They have 2 SDRs, which info guys call setters, right? Now these 2 SDRs, they're booking each SDR. First of all, each SDR is getting paid $70K a year, okay? And then they're booking only 3 meetings a month. How can a full-time SDR that gets paid $70K a year only book 3 meetings a month and they're fine with that? Yeah, they're not happy with it, but they're fine with that. So if that's their expectation and that's their standard, we could blow it out of the water. And if you look at what they're doing, they're only on LinkedIn, for example. They're not using email. They don't have follow-up sequences. They're not cold calling. They're not doing that in an omni-channel way. They don't have any follow-up assets. They don't have any content assets. They don't even have a VSL. Their sales process is 6 months for only, $40K a year SaaS. And there's so much that can be optimized, but because the reason SaaS companies, especially that are a newer stage, that haven't been around for 50 years, they need outside consultants that are unbiased to just look at the objective state of the business and what they're currently doing, give them a little slap in the face, and actually say, hey, this is a reality. This is what you need to be doing different. Because they're so stuck in the day-to-day and they're biased because that's their role, they need to optimize things, they come up with excuses around why KPIs aren't like that, and they externalize it and they blame the market. Oh, we have a small TAM, total addressable market. That doesn't work in our industry, because they're so stuck in the ways of the business that they get confused and they forget to look at business objectively. Okay, you have a vision, you have a mission, you have your goal, you have the KPIs, and you hit that goal. Yeah. They're not optimized. Here's what you do to optimize them, but there's so much emotion tied up because there's so much in the day-to-day that they're just confused and they can't innovate.
And what are the primary holes you saw within this company specifically? I know you mentioned, okay, they have 2 SDRs, they're paying them quite a bit of money, and they're only booking, let's call it 6 calls total a month between the both of them. That obviously is a core problem, but what was the main transformation you saw as far as what you could bring to them? And can you take me into that detail a little bit? And what was their goal? Did they come to you with a goal?
It's they're a new client. I don't want to wreck my relations with them. I don't want to expose too much, etc.
Yeah.
But let's just say this is hypothetical example.
Yeah.
Right? Just for private, confidential reasons.
Of course.
So if someone has, let's say, a sales cycle of 6 months, why do they have a sales cycle of 6 months? It's probably because one of, let's say, 2 things. Number one, they're not reaching the stakeholders directly. So when you're selling to corporations, there's a common thing called stakeholder threading. Meaning, in order to get to the top and to sell to the top, if you want to sell to the decision maker, you have to enter through lower people in the company, right? Okay, you enter through this business analyst, then you get your way to here, then you get your way to the CMO, who connects you to the CEO, connects you to the board member, etc. Now, the reason they have such a long sales process and sales cycle is because they have to do so much of that until they get to the top. Why can't they get to the top directly? Why can't you just challenge their way of thinking that you could just get to the top correctly and easily and faster if you just have the right outreach message and the right outreach sequence, and you actually do it in a consistent manner and you do a lot of it. They just sometimes, literally, if you just look at a company and you say, hey, why not just do this? Why not just do what no one else does? And like, if you do what no one else does, you're going to get a result that no one else does as well.
100%.
So just challenging their way of thinking of doing that. And okay, that's one. Their sales cycle is so long because they have to do all the stakeholder threading and they don't go directly to the decision maker like they should, or like 2 layers, right? Another reason is because when you're selling software, sometimes it's a nice to have and not a need to have, right? Especially if they're not that problem aware. If your market isn't that problem aware and they don't feel like they need to have it, it will take longer for you to sell because it's not something that they need urgently. It's not like you're going to die without it. It's not like you have a headache and you need a headache pill right now and you have a migraine. You're going to buy it right now. But if you don't even have a headache, why would you buy a headache pill? The only reason you buy one is to avoid that in the future when you have it. So that will have a longer sales cycle. And the way you fix that is by first realizing that you have to make 3 sales in every sale. You have to sell them on making a change. You have to sell them on their methodology. And then you have to sell them on the product. If they have to make all those 3 sales on number 1, hey, problem awareness, your situation isn't that good, you need to make a change. Number 2, if you want to make a change, the best way is through our mechanism. It's the fastest, bestest, and easiest way to make that change. After you make that sale, okay, I believe in your mechanism. Now, how can it be implemented in my business? Then you have to sell the product. But what you can do, if you're good at marketing, you're good at curating content assets, etc., you can make the first 2 sales on making a change and the methodology and your unique mechanism before they even hop on a call. So usually for them, they'd have to do 4 discovery calls, like 4 calls, just to sell them on making a change in the method. And then, okay, finally they're sold on that. And after follow-up, because they're not doing like basic sales tactics, then they finally sell them on the product. If you could get those 2 sales done by having VSLs, having case studies, having ROI calculators, having financial model simulations before they even hop on the call, and that's stuff that we know to do in the info space so that they don't do. When you cut someone's sales cycle by 40%, you make them so much more money. Their sales velocity goes way up. Yeah. Their closers are more happy. They retain longer. There's just so many benefits. Yeah. It's just a specific example.
And I think you're someone talking about the problem awareness. You've nailed this, right? So like just through your personal brand, like really take it home. Like you can watch a lot of your videos and you become aware of like the problems you're hitting on. Like, hey, you're the info product guys. You're doing, 100K a year, but I know you're not collecting all of that in profit, like you're not, these guys, they call it like broke influencer syndrome. Some guys have the problem awareness side, they think so down, but then we talk about those other 3 yeses you talk about and it's a complete mess. They can't prove the transformation because their testimonials are all over the place, and then when it comes to selling the product, they don't actually have proper sales training. So they're not presenting the product in a proper way. Like there's a really good Shelby Sapp talks about this in her content all the time where it's like sell the sizzle, not the steak. But it's almost like you said, it really sell the sizzle first and then make them want the steak. And then it's right there. Here's how you get the steak. Right?
Exactly.
So I think you've really pinned that down. Now you you've kind of hit on exactly kind of where you're at and like, what you're excited about and, the big kind of shift you're making. I am kind of curious, and I think a lot of people are curious, like what motivates you to keep like pushing this ball forward? Because even when we talked last night, like you were in a solid place for most people, right? Yeah. But it wasn't a place you were necessarily like, you knew you could be better. Like, I'm not going to say you weren't okay with it, but I could just tell in your, like, this was just a starting point when we talked 6 months ago. Right. And so talk to me about how your mindset shift over the last like 6 months and going from 10K a month clients to 100K a month clients, multiple 7-figure clients.
So first of all, one thing I want to touch on what motivates me and why I'm doing even this podcast in the first place. I'm not going to sell info. I want to make this clear. I'm not going to sell info on how to not sell info and get into this. The reason I'm making this podcast and the reason that I might be still making content about what we're doing and making a lot of noise in the market about what we're doing is because for a consulting firm, when I build this to a $1 billion company over the next 40 years, the main competitive moat that I'm going to need to have is talent. That's it. It's talent. I'm in the people business, right? And if my unique selling proposition of my firm is to merge new age, info-based, insightful tactics with old-based business principles from our advisory board, which we're actually just using their credibility for, if that's going to be my main unique selling proposition, then I need to attract the best, most talented infopreneurs, info marketers that are making 20, 50, 100, 500K a month, but they're sick of that grind and they just want to do a couple deals, a couple deals a quarter, boom, take home $3 million profit, boom, 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 maybe build it even to bigger heights, do real business, actually have status. And the reason I'm doing that is because once I create the problem awareness about the info space and people will want to transition into doing real business, everyone circularly wants to do that. They just don't believe that they can. They don't have the vehicle to do that. Then we're going to create an entire application process where you can become actually, we're going to have a trial period, but you can become a partner in our firm and you can ride this wave with us for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, because that will be our unique selling proposition, because the market in the world is moving so fast and it's just compounding, especially with AI and everything. Mm-hmm. And if these big enterprises that are old and they're not using new age tactics, if they don't, they're going to die. And we're going to save them, and we're going to save these companies. And these companies, they provide real value and change for the world. So if we're not going to save them, we're doing a disservice to the entire world, right? And that ties back to what drives me, is that I know that God gave me so much potential, and that he woke me up this morning. He gave me the ability to communicate my ideas. He gave me the ability to influence. And if I don't use that, if I don't keep working and using that skill set, I am being a selfish motherfucker, because I am not fulfilling. I am being selfish by not fulfilling my full potential to help others. Mm-hmm. If I just, I could have stayed where I'm at when I was making 10, 15K a month, like a year ago. But I didn't, because I know I have more in me, and I'll have more in me when I'm 60 years old. I'll still be closing deals. Yeah. And when I close deals, when I help people, when I sell, I make change. Like sales is change. The world will not move. The world will not change or evolve without people that know how to sell, without people that know how to close deals, without people that know how to move shit forward. Because the only way that you can actually sell something to someone, most of the time, except in info, is when you actually help them. It's when you help them get richer, fitter, happier, and you help them in one of those areas of their life, whether it's health or relationships or their wealth. Mm-hmm. So every time I close a deal, it's going to help them in that way, in one of those regards. Mm-hmm. So when I don't close someone, I'm doing a disservice. So that's why I'm going to keep doing it, because I have more potential in me, and I'll be selfish if I don't.
Do you ever get do you ever get complacent? Have you ever felt complacent?
Yeah, I was just talking about this with my friend the other day. So yeah, and I'll also expand on this. So the first time that I got really complacent was after I hit my first 8K month as a closer like 2 years ago. And, hitting 8K a month as a closer, I was doing follow-up. I was actually being very intentional on each call, doing my research, working my pipeline, calling out leads, etc. And, I really worked it out. Like, I did a lot of, my skill set was fine, but it was mainly through process and activity, right? Just doing more inputs. Mm-hmm. Now, after I hit that 8K month, I was pretty chill, vacation, this, that. And what happened was I stopped doing the things that got me there in the first place, process and activity, follow-up, pipeline work, etc. Mm-hmm. Next month, I look at my commission check. It's like 3K. I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah. How did this happen? I thought I was doing the same thing. Yeah. You have to realize is that once you reach a certain point, you still have to continue doing the things that got you there. Mm-hmm. To even maintain it, not even scale. Yeah, you could delegate them, cool. But someone or you have to keep doing the things that got you there in the first place, or you're just going to fall back to where you were at. And that's what people don't realize. People realize, okay, boom, got to 100K a month, cool, and now I could chill. But next thing you know, after a couple of months, because the market is growing, and if you don't innovate, if you don't keep growing, what's going to happen? Naturally, if the market keeps going up and you just stay stagnant, you're going to end up going down. So yeah, it definitely happened to me, but what I've learned how to prevent it is by just setting new standards in my mind and in my life. Like literally, you can become non-complacent if you reach a different level, increase your standards, increase your expenses. Yeah. Because then you're going to have to keep pushing. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, I can't stop now. I'll go broke.
Yeah, 100%. No, I love that you hit on that with just even like you hit an 8K a month and then you were like, and you paid attention to the pattern, and then you looked back and you were like, okay, what was 8K a month Tamir doing that 3K a month Tamir is not doing? And then going back, implementing those habits, improving those habits. I talk about it all the time. Like even might come up, I'm 24 now, but between 18 and 22, I scaled 2 companies to 10K a month, and I watched them both dip right back to 2,500 twice. But it was that, and it was the same thing. And the second time it happened, it finally clicked for me. The first time it happened, I just tried to do a lot of the same stuff, and I more or less got lucky. And the second time it happened, I go, I cannot go through this again. I do not want to go through this again. Like, how do we prevent this from the future? And I looked back and I was like, okay, well, 19-year-old Jack was doing X, Y, Z, and 21-year-old Jack is not doing that. 21-year-old Jack's in college, fucking around, doing what he's not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So I love that. I really like that you hit on that. Now, where I want to take it from a place of complacency is more, people talk about kind of the path from, let's call it 10K a month to 100K a month. And they're trying to hit like these, what do you see as like the main gap between guys doing 7 figures a year and guys that are okay with 6 figures a year? I think that's a good kind of point, just because I know you've been around all sides.
Look, so there's 2 things. Yeah, there's a tactical aspect of things, but it's more of the identity and character that you are. So yeah, okay, tactically, to scale from 6 to 7, okay, just find the bottlenecks in your business, okay, boom, paid ads, this funnel, that, all the tactics, little nuances, etc. But those don't matter. If there's the number one thing you could do, in my opinion, aside from the tactics, here's the exact tactics to scale from 6 to 7 figures, etc. There's a million of those, and it doesn't matter. And they all change, depends on what industry you're in and the time of the market. As I said, because the info space is fucking fugazi. It's so volatile.
Yeah.
So I would be doing a disservice of, I would say, the tactics, but I would say number one thing is, okay, your character, like who you become, the difference of character of who you are. The number one thing that can influence that is who you surround yourself with. Right? So I would say if there's one thing that could guarantee that you make that leap, it's probably who you surround yourself with. So instead of hanging out with 6-figure entrepreneurs, hang out with 7-figure entrepreneurs, and you will become that 7-figure entrepreneur. Like it is that simple, in my opinion. And setting that new standard for yourself that you are a 7-figure operator. So what if you're at 6 figures right now? What does 7-figure Jack have that 6-figure Jack doesn't? Or also, what does 7-figure Jack not have that you have now? In your character, in your personality, in your habits, in the way you think, in the way your business is structured. And most people know what to do. Yeah. We all know what to do. Sometimes we just don't have that confidence and belief in ourselves that it's what we actually need to do. And that's why sometimes, mentors are important, because they just give you that extra bit of confidence, not even new tactics.
Right.
We have already all the tactics and all the information we need. Yeah. Now it's about custom implementation and accountability.
Yeah.
But I would say that's the biggest thing. Amazing.
And I'll even give you like a personal example, just because we hit on it. Like the thing that does hold me back from taking this from a 6-figure year company to a 7-figure plus year company is simply, it's really self-worth. Like it's simply me being willing to ask for more money. And I think that has always been my, even if the product's great, and right now, the product is, I really seriously believe in it more than anything I've ever built. And there's still that little part of me to where if a little bit of fear of rejection, or a little bit of I'd rather just close the deal, or, a little bit of this, if I just keep closing a deal every day, we'll get there. But being around, surrounding myself with guys like yourself and guys in A players and everything like that, they don't think like that. Their default mechanism is, no, I'm worth 10 grand per client, dude. Every single client needs to be paying me $10,000, $1,000 a month, $5,000 up front.
It is just a standard. It is just raising the standard.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yesterday I get back, we check into your Airbnb and I get there. Cool. I have my business partner had the sales call in the morning. I just came in or whatever. I'll just close the deal. And it was okay, $12,500. I honestly I wasn't excited. I actually, this isn't some I'm fucking info guru entrepreneur saying this on podcast so they could clip it up.
Yeah.
I didn't even react because I don't want my mind to think that that's good. And I'll same with the 100K. I don't want my mind to think that that's good, because my self-worth is way above that. And that is all it is. That is all. That's the main thing that's holding people back, is their own self-worth. Now, it doesn't have to be ego. Yeah, it may come off to people as ego, especially people below you. Yeah. But it's just your own standard for yourself. And I honestly, I don't know. I don't know how you can And there's no strategy. There's no fucking thing that you can. I don't know tactically anything that you could do to raise that. But I feel like one thing that you can do, obviously, the standard, your proximity, your environment, etc.
Putting your mind. I think it's the repetitions. I think it's the constant repetition of, even if you have to be the guy that says the manifestations every single day and just tells yourself exactly who you are and who you want to be, and who, like, I've just noticed, like, especially when I'm in like a low place, or even relating to this marathon when we like didn't feel good on, mile 20, but I would just keep telling myself, you're in great physical shape, you're in great mental shape, this isn't bad, you're in great physical shape, you're in great mental shape. And that really like pushed through. And I've noticed that same on the business end, but also in the self-worth end. Like me now waking up for like the last 3 months, telling myself like, dude, you're worthy of $100K a month business. Like you are capable of this. You've made people thousands, if not millions of dollars. You can 100% do this. And then you just operate at that level. And then I do start asking myself those questions, and people like asking yourself the tough questions, I think is something you've highlighted like passively throughout this, where you just kind of like, what would 7-figure me do that 6-figure me is not doing?
That's the thing. Yeah. It's cool to say it on a podcast, but if you actually think about that, people will hear this, whether you're listening to it at home, whatever, and they won't actually think about it. They're just watching this for entertainment. But if the highest leverage thing you can do is think, and I could give you a million examples in my life when instead of 4 hours of working, just 4 hours of deep thinking, just changed my business forever. And that's what made me the most money, is the times that I actually thought. So if you actually pause and actually think, what does that mean? Note it down, reflect on it. That is worth much more than you doing 4 hours of deep work, building a funnel, optimizing some ads in the ads manager, building a Zapier automation. It doesn't matter, because those things can become irrelevant after you actually think about what's higher leverage and you look inside. And you look inside. So I actually just recommend people to actually block out a couple hours a day to just think, especially after you're like doing, $30K a month and you have some money, where you can think of your business as a hedge fund or as an investment firm, where your job is to deploy capital in places for other people to do the work, in strategies that can work without you. Because if you think about your business as like a hedge fund, okay, I see this sales rep, he's investment, what's his track record, what's the risk if he doesn't perform, how much can I make if he does perform, what's the probability of that happening, and you just deploy capital in different places. That's how you make money, when you think and you're analytical in that way, and then you know where to deploy capital instead of keep being in the trenches. It's just because people don't zoom out and they don't actually think.
You can do a lot of work and go the wrong direction. There's a great, I was reading the 48 Laws of Power, and I believe that was the book I was reading. And one of the main things it was talking about was how a lot of people, if you want to go to LA, then you can do a lot of things. Like if you basically don't do a bunch of work thinking you're on the road to LA, because you could end up in San Diego. Yeah. You can do a lot of work for a long time and end up in the wrong place. But if you sit down and you actually think about it, and you're actually intentional with every action that you're taking. And like I learned from my parents early on, like always have a purpose and a target. Yeah. Like always have a purpose and a target, and then everything else doesn't really matter. It allows you to really block it out. And like you mentioned on the feeling side, like one of the key powers of manifestation is feeling that you're there. It's not just saying to yourself constant affirmations of I'm a millionaire. It's thinking, and if you're around people that have done it, like we just got to go on this amazing trip with A players around a bunch of 6-7 figure entrepreneurs, not much older than us or younger than me, frankly. And it changes your whole way of thinking, because now I have a reference point to think like, oh, like what's Joe thinking about right now? What's Tom thinking about right now? Yeah. What's James up to? Like, how would these guys kind of think about this situation? How would Tamir handle this situation? Tamir would just go after it and, fucking demand exactly what he's worth, and he wouldn't let this be an obstacle or try to get into somebody's feelings. He would just say, no, there's 7 billion people I could sell to. And I know I can get 1% of those over a lifetime to believe in the value I provide. And 1% of 7 billion is a lot of people. Yeah. And that's amazing. And now you're focused on the 1%. You're not focused on the 7 billion. Yeah. By focusing on the 1%, you're going to impact the 7 billion, because that 1% will go tell 5 friends. Everybody listening to this podcast that sends it to somebody, please do. I appreciate you. They will now provide this value on just some of the stuff you even said earlier about, your board of advisors and your thoughts on leverage, and how you really decided to go from just the type of clients you were working with to demanding like these bigger size clients, and then realizing, a lot of these same you didn't have to change too much of who you are or your skill set. You just had to apply it to a new environment of people that actually saw that value instead of convincing them of that value. Yeah.
Exactly, and fuck working with those small clients, man. Fuck that. You become even if you do high ticket, even if it's a 10K client, even if it's a rev share client, I know this speaks to a lot of growth operators. You're a freaking slave to their business. Okay, they do not respect you at all, and the client doesn't even do the work on their end, and you end up doing all of this for rev share, etc. It doesn't even get paid out at the right time because they don't know how to manage their finances. They're calling you every second at dinner, at this, demanding, being unprofessional as fuck. When in B2B. Okay, cool. Bi-weekly email report. They probably don't even read it. You're getting them the results. That's it. And even if you're not getting them the results, it doesn't matter because you're not. Here's the thing: like you don't guarantee outcomes. That's stupid. How if you come to a B2B company and say, "Oh, I'm going to guarantee you X, Y, Z," get the fuck out. They don't even listen to you for 1 second because how can you guarantee an outcome if you don't control all the variables of the business?
Yes,
and you have to guarantee deliverables, guarantee the input, because that's all you can control, and they respect that. And then you create a financial model with, okay, we increase this by this percentage by doing XYZ. Here's case studies to back up that we know how to do that with the risk-adjusted return of 40%. This is the probability that you're going to have this. Here's the ROI. Boom, boom, boom. What questions do you have? Boom, paid. That's it.
You're like answering a lot of these questions that the client would have before the call even starts, or as you, by knowing, like doing your due diligence and understanding the space. I really like how, and it's a good approach for anybody like heading into sales calls or like big sales meetings, is like, and when you're shooting your VSL, especially, like think about those pre-call questions they're going to have, or those, beginning call questions they're going to have, and have them taken care of. Because if anything is a super big deal, they'll watch that video and they'll just tell you straight up. And now you have the objection heading in, and you know how to navigate that objection. So I think that's amazing. I know on our last podcast, we talked a lot about, sales expertise and sales objections and, kind of everything like that. And it was a really great episode for anybody like getting started in the space. It's actually, now that listening to it back, I'm going to redo the audio editing and fix it. Better, and we'll reproduce it. But week 38 of last year, don't listen to it yet. But even if you just read the description, you can learn a lot just from that. Now kind of going back a little bit, I always like to kind of ask some interesting questions with the guests. Talk to me about the time you've made your first dollar.
Okay, so I made my first shekel. Okay, shekel is Israeli currency. I live in Israel. It's actually whatever. I won't get you demonetized, but pretty much. I started busking on the streets. So
what does that mean?
Busking, like taking your guitar, opening up the case, setting up a microphone like this.
Okay.
Busking, yeah. So I was a big guitar kid.
Okay.
Played guitar for like 3-4 years.
Cool. And how old were you when you first went out with your guitar on the street?
10, 11.
10 or 11.
Yeah. I was ballsy, man. I was in front of a lot of people. I would do it in front of like the whole school of like 300 people. Wow. Me and my friend.
And no fear. Or you had fear, you just ignored it?
Of course I had fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, man, I made 200 shekel in like 2 hours. And that's like $50.
Yeah.
As a 10-year-old.
Dude, $25 an hour at 10 years old. I know freaking 24-year-olds not making that much money right now.
So I would go to the public, like this train station on Fridays, because Friday, that's when the Jewish Sabbath comes in. It's like everyone's kind of, in a good vibe, and you would play songs like Friday songs in Israel. And I would open up, my guitar case, throw some money in there. I would have a hat, and like a musician hat, and I would have my notes, and I would just have my guitar and a microphone, a speaker. I have to carry all these backpacks around and stuff, and would just start playing. It was really hot in the summer that I would do it. My guitar would get out of tune. It would probably sound horrible, but I was a cute little kid. People would give me money, and I kept doing that a bit. That was my first like physical dollar. Online wise, it was when I started day trading.
Okay. So talk to me about, so you eventually decide and probably just naturally stop going out into the street to do the the music stuff, and it wasn't something that you necessarily wanted to take into like a bar or like.
Man, I was 11, bro.
No, of course, but you know, you're a live musician, right? So like, people need live music everywhere. You know, like there was of course there was a lane for that. You could have been the next Justin Bieber, dude. We could have been sitting here. Well,
maybe I'll still be.
Yeah, maybe you still would be in the next life. You'll you'll flip the script and go do that. And I think a lot of what I always say, what motivates me to make so much money while I'm young is so that I feel a lot more confident heading into these creative adventures and like seeing like really maximizing this lifetime and doing, you know, seeing what else I'm good at. But I think there's a level of responsibility to go provide serious value to the world and be reciprocated for that value and build, you know, obviously make money. Like we don't want to say like money, we're not gonna say money's everything, but ultimately like, especially as a man, you need to be able to provide. You know, it's not your wife's job to provide for you. It's your job to provide a life that somebody else wants to be a part of. And you should find somebody that wants to help you 10x those goals. And if they don't waste your time, you know, not to get into the whole relationships thing. But I think even just on the point you hit on earlier about complacency, I see that in relationships all the time. Whatever you did to get that girl, you need to continue to move forward with to keep her around. And same on her end, whatever she did to make, and as soon as she stops doing that, there needs to be a serious conversation of like, hey, this isn't like what we started to do. We got comfortable. And that's why they, you know, couples that hang out every day don't make it, in my opinion, because there's no, and it's the same with it's the same with your business. It's if you're going to wake up and do the same things every day for your clients and then the same things for your new clients and everything like that, and there's no involvement, they can feel that, and everything will run dry. Like literally, not to be weird, but everything will literally run dry. So that's interesting. So your first dollar comes from the music side, and then now let's talk about your first dollar online. When did you see the opportunity to make money online?
Okay, so this was actually a part of the story that I kind of forget about a lot, but basically what happened was I was then a skateboarder. I don't think I have any videos.
I think you have those. Are they on YouTube?
No, they're not on YouTube. I did post them on Instagram.
You posted on Instagram?
Okay, yeah, maybe in my archive. I don't know if I saved it anywhere in my highlights, but yeah, so I started getting into that, and when I started getting out of that, I had a couple other like skateboards. And I was thinking, okay, I could just sell these on eBay. I got a new phone, so I was like, oh, let me sell the case on eBay. So I looked at my camera roll the other day, and I was seeing like pictures of this notepad with like the plan. Okay, this is going to be 65 shekel. This is how much profit I'm going to keep. This is what I'm going to list. And then I'm going to buy this from the store to add it as a bonus, etc. List on eBay. I never ended up doing that. But it was a good idea. And then what happened was I ended up starting day trading. And it was on a demo account. And then after I got kind of good at the demo account when I was trading at school, that felt like real money. That was so fun. I started with a couple $100. Yeah. 956 to be exact. Rolled that up to 12K in like a couple weeks. I was at a moment. I was like, I was going to be a millionaire. Let's fucking go, bro. Boom, boom, boom. Lost it all. One trade Wednesday afternoon before going to the gym. Lost it all. Back to like 600 over leverage. I was pretty lucky. And then I realized, okay, cool. And then kind of my whole identity went away. And then I got into Instagram content agency, etc. I could go into this whole story, but it'll be a long one. I have one on my YouTube, I think.
Yeah, of course. No, and I think it's important. Like, it's important to hear, like, I think the first time you get paid to do something that you created the value for, and you got that bug at probably 10. Yeah. And for me, it was about 16. Like I started selling stuff for people on Facebook. And the first time I like made a deal and I made somebody else money and they paid me because I made them that money, I was like, wait, I've got it all. Like I've been sold it all wrong. Like I don't need to go through all this schooling and go try to like kiss up to some CEO. I just need to acquire the skills that are valuable to that CEO. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to pick who I want to work for, where I want to work, how I want to work around it. And a lot of people would say, oh, like that's you always trying to be right, or that's you like just not getting help. Like,
well, who are the people saying that?
Right, exactly. It's not the people that are where I'd like aspired to be. Like they weren't the 7-figure people. It's a lot of people from my small town. It's a lot of people, you know, like love my parents to death. But even when I was like younger, it was still like it was the little business, right? Like, oh, how's the little thing going? Oh, Like, when are you going to go get a real job? Oh, like not them specifically, but more like their pressure came from the people around them that were looking at their kids as a representation of them, which I completely understand. Yeah. And they're going to have questions because they're not around me every day. They don't know the mindset. They're not, they don't know that I'm out here doing things with, these 100%. Types of people. And I never felt a responsibility to tell them that because I know it's my journey. Like this is my thing. Like this is like Drake's got a great quote. Like, bro, like this is our thing, bro. Like you focus on you, and that is better for the world around you. And it's a hard concept to grasp, but like you hit on, if you want 99% of the results that people, or you want 1% of the results that 99% of people don't get, you got to do the 1% things. And if you want even further than that, I take it further and go to the 0.01% things. If you're not willing to sit down and do a podcast with even like somebody that's got a smaller audience, but they're willing to talk to you for an hour and let you, tell the world about who you are, the problem you solve, and how you can help them, then that's you doing a disservice to the world, like you hit on earlier. That's you taking ego and personal identity and valuing that in the moment more than the long-term game of this, than the people that are going to see this on YouTube in 10 years that are, between the ages of 14 and 18 that want to get started online, or like they're in that same boat. They have that same thought we had of like, I know I'm capable of more. Well, now you can come watch an episode of two guys that definitely knew they were capable of more and then just spent the next 10 years like proving that to themselves, stacking undeniable proof. Hermosi has a great quote on that where it's like, stack as much undeniable proof about who you are and you'll never question it again. Yeah. And I think we've both done that like super effectively, but you especially. You talked about earlier, like you could be doing sales till you're 60 years old.
Yeah, I love doing deals.
Really? And that's a real deals. Like you don't really see a world where you'll just kind of F off to Fiji and
no man. Like potentially a bit, but I'll still be doing deals. When I'm like, when my firm's huge, I'll still probably just go down, get involved, with the partners that are doing the deals, help them out, do this, because it really is an art of creating win-win situations for everyone, and it's like a puzzle that you need to solve as well. And I just love that, especially in higher advanced sales. Some people don't, longer sales process, more complex, but that's the whole point. You got to solve a more complex problem to get paid much more. Like, what would you rather? Have a B2C sales call, selling your drop shipping course, where you get to the end of a 3-hour call after handling all his limiting beliefs to realize he only has $50 in his bank account. You get that all and you get $5 commission. Yeah, it was kind of easy, straight line forward. But if you solve a complex sales process, you have multiple decision makers. Everyone has different concerns. You have to Ninjago all of them and all of their concerns at the same time. And then you got to realize, okay, this person has this hidden concern. Let me send him a gift about this. Boom. I'll act like I'm in this city. I'll not actually be in that city, but then I'll just fly out there to close this deal. Then this person has this. This person actually likes me. So let me connect a call between them. Reference over here. Boom, boom, boom. And when it all comes together beautifully like a puzzle, what happens? It clicks.
Yeah. And you're the key focal point. You're the point of contact of how did this person get connected.
And everyone wins. Everyone wins in business. The client wins. You win. Your team wins. You're just creating a win-win situation for everyone. That's why I don't like trading, because in order for you to win, someone else has to lose. You're not creating value.
I haven't heard that perspective on trading.
You're taking value out of the market. You're taking money out of the market. The only way in business to make money is to make someone 10 times as much, right? So it's just creating a win-win situation.
Most people won't buy from you unless they see a 3 to 5x return on their investment, and in the 100%. Private equity world.
And that doesn't have to be money. That's what people forget. That can be, it's a skill deficiency in sales if you don't know how to position mindset coaching, fitness coaching, relationship coaching, productivity coaching, to show them that you will make 10 times as much more money if that's their main driver. So that's their main driver. There's a way to position anything back to that driver. In relationship coaching, let's say you help men. Okay, this is a simple one. If you're a divorce coach, if we reduce the risk of you getting a divorce by this much, and that means she doesn't take half of your money, and let's say half of that money is $500K, would that be worth paying $50K for? Probably not. With the 70% probability, would that be worth whatever 70% of $50K is? I didn't graduate high school. I'm not the best math, but look, that's I honestly love it, and it's interesting, and I love it. It's art.
Cool. And I want to know, do you pay attention to? I try not to take us out of the present moment too much, but are there things you're watching from in the any predictions you feel like really confident in terms of whether how you see the space turning out or a specific industry turning out, or if you want to use this to kind of give your thoughts on AI, feel free.
Look, I'm not the AI expert. We did just hire a AI expert and tech expert to our team yesterday. Absolutely, like number one in Israel for math, for his age, working in the corporate side of McDonald's, transforming AI, and we brought them onto our team, which is pretty cool. What I will say is about the info space. There's info space, and then there's education. Education, okay, that's another conversation. But about info space specifically, it's going to die, in my opinion. The info space as it is right now, I'm 100% confident it will die. Why? Because information is now accessible to everyone, especially with AI right now. Okay, cool, we have all the information, so what's the value in courses? Is that it's organized information, you get one-on-one support. Well, how about you just feed ChatGPT your personality type, the way you learn, your exact situation step by step, it will organize that information for you. Oh, and then one-on-one support. How about you create an AI agent that checks in with you every day and keeps you accountable and supports you, that actually checks up on you? Oh, cool, and coaching, but you need custom implementation, and what if, it doesn't know the questions? Okay, you have a group call once a week with 50 other people. You don't get your question answered. AI, boom, one-on-one call with the AI. It has all the knowledge in the world, and it has the knowledge only about you specifically, not thinking about 100 other students. It can coach you on that.
Yes.
And if you can't engineer the AI to do that, then that's a skill deficiency in prompt engineering, and that's a whole different skill. So I don't see people buying info to achieve a specific objective from other people. When you can just have it for free or for really cheap from AI.
100%. I like that. I think that's I think if people are talking about the industries AI is going to take out, and nobody has mentioned the info space. You're the first person that I've heard that perspective on, and it just clicked in my head as kind of one of those things where like you passively would know it, but I wouldn't have came to it till I actually saw it.
You can learn from the dead. You can learn from the greatest people and customize. Like, okay, let's say you want to learn from Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
It has all the knowledge about all of his books, and then you give it your exact situation, what you need help with, and it will customize it to your situation and to your learning style, however you want, and you could build off of it. Masterclass, I don't know how much they're worth, probably billions. All of those people in there, they're sharing all this information online. What does that mean? You can literally grab all of that, have a GPT from, let's say, one of the masterclass people?
Jeremy Minor.
Okay, let's say I don't know. You know the masterclass platform, like that big course platform, like the real $1 billion education platform. Okay, let's say one of those science guys that talks about space and astronomy.
Okay,
you can have all of his information and knowledge, even from the masterclass, because information, it gets leaked, it's pirated. Yeah, you could have, an NDA for the program. It's going to be leaked. You can have that, boom, and all in ChatGPT. Talk to it whenever you want, and get all the information you need from it customized to you. And there's not going to be value in paying for information because it's already going to be all accessible.
Yeah.
So the wings, it's going to swing to, instead of, this pendulum effect. We went from done for you services to all the way do it yourself information. Now we're swinging back into done with you mentorship, coaching style, and go back to done for you. But that's the thing. The done for you doesn't have to be from paying an agency. You have AI agents. Okay. You don't need to pay an agency to do this. You tell an AI a specific objective, it will do it for you, and it's compounding and getting so much more advanced. There will be a point where you can tell AI, build me $1 million a month company, and it will do it.
Yeah, it'll give you the.
So then the question is, what's the point?
Right.
Then what's the value of money?
Yeah.
Where's the world headed? What will humans do? Where will we provide value? How will we find meaning? And that's a more advanced podcast for another day.
Yeah, no, I love that, and because I'm a big proponent of AI, and I'm a big proponent of, I've never been somebody to like hire a coach, and it was because for me YouTube was that coaching. I go, if I want to learn, like for me, I got started in this space because of Iman. That was a great way to do it. I never bought Iman's course. I watched all his free content on YouTube. I watched the people he was surrounded by. I watched their content on YouTube. I waited for them to do webinars, and I would go to their master classes per se. And I would like absorb all this information, but it came down to the execution. If you don't know how to execute, then, and I have a quote that says you always have to prepare to execute. So if you're not prepared, if you don't know how to prepare to execute, if you don't know how to, my dad always tells me this, if you don't know how to think about thinking about it, then you're behind every single person that does, because your action that you're taking is off reaction and it's off emotion, and it's not off, I prepared for this. This is exactly kind of what I intended to do. And this is by those intentions. Now the world is looking like this. And now you're reacting to those situations out of preparedness and execution. Now I think we're going to go from a space of people that know how to give a lot of information or know how to take a lot of information to, you're going to have like the, what's the quote? It's like the wantrepreneurs versus the entrepreneurs. And the wantrepreneurs know all the stuff and they could regurgitate all the information and they could make their Instagram look great.
Yeah.
But the entrepreneurs are the executors. The entrepreneurs are the ones feeding off those wantrepreneurs, saying, hey, you've got all these problems and I'll make you a good entrepreneur. But now you can't just do that with info. You have to provide them a product, a process, a transformation. And then they will come in and obviously pay you, hopefully, for the value exchange. I always say, like, money is a value exchange. Somebody that values the paper version of $10 versus the person who values that, piece of jewelry that's worth, that's a bad example because jewelry's not $10, but you know what I'm saying? You could exchange an item that somebody sees value. You see this in art all the time, or you could cash that value, and somebody that wants to utilize that cash will go expand the value of that cash if that's why they're taking the cash. But the person who's just taking cash over the painting is going to go blow that cash because they have no preparedness on how to turn that $1,000 into $10,000. So I think that was a great point you hit on. I do want to know, and I know my audience wants to know, you're a very confident person. Okay. So number one, where does your sense of confidence come from? And the follow-up question to that is, what's your biggest weakness?
Yeah. So I would say my biggest weakness is exactly what you said, being overconfident.
Okay.
So my biggest strength and my biggest weakness is being overconfident, and it's feedback that I get from mentors of mine, and that I understand that especially now entering bigger business, you being overconfident can sometimes be a turnoff. Overhyping is not a good selling strategy in high-level B2B. Or we're going to make you all this money. Okay, how, where, what? I don't want you to make me a lot of money. I want to make a calculated decision based on probabilities. So I have to develop, I have a PAS selling system where you customize the way you sell based on personality types. I'm very actionable, boom, 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 to the point, confident, and then social. And then my weakest point is the practicality, but I got to raise that up, especially because I'm entering bigger business now. How did I become confident? I guess I don't know one thing that I've said that I will do that will come true in my life early on that didn't actually come true yet. And there's so much other things like that in the future as well. And I know it will come true because that's what happened in the past. And that's where my sense of confidence is from.
Keeping promises to yourself.
Keeping promises to myself, of course, but it also being overly confident in the wrong things. Okay, when you're being overly confident and you're just promising, overly confident, etc., you can set the wrong expectations with people, and then you can under-deliver if you're overly confident in a specific outcome and you're not thinking based on data, analytics, probabilities, etc. And then that can bite you in the ass, and that could actually lower your confidence. So it's my biggest strength and my biggest weakness, and now it's about managing it. And applying it to the right situations.
Cool. And your awareness of it is very key. I think a lot of it starts with accepting the fact you're overconfident, or accepting the fact that you're quote unquote cocky. And my thing, especially, with guys that are a little younger than me, is always like, I would rather the person listening to this that feels like they may have an ego problem have that ego problem now than it bite them in the ass at 28 or 25 or 24. I think I would rather that be now, and I'd rather them not be depressed right now thinking, oh, like I'm 18, I got to do all these things, like before I'm 30, like I'm so scared, I can't do, and you don't result in taking any action. But if you have that overconfidence of like, dude, I'm just going to shoot my shot and I'm going to throw paint on the wall and I'm going to watch what sticks and I'm going to be awareness of what doesn't work. Like, as long as you can accept that you might fall flat on your face and you don't fear that, then it's a great way to be. It's a great way to be overconfident. I think it's attractive to those who lack the confidence. Like, somebody who gets around you will instantly raise their vibe. People who get around me tell me that all the time. Like, dude, I was in a bad mood, but like, you just have this like calmness to you that like made me seem like everything was okay. Yeah. And it's because I'm the self-confidence we talk about. Self-confidence comes from confidence in the self.
I like that.
And you build confidence in the self by making promise to yourself, step one, not just keeping promises because you said something at a bar. It's like, it's making logical like promises to yourself in advance and preparing a plan on how to execute those promises, and then being acknowledgeable of what's happening during that process and what am I learning from this. You know, we never really fail. We're always learning.
Yeah.
Like there's no failure in life. There's just there's lessons to be learned, and every time you fail, it's just a reminder that you're in that gap. And I was talking about this with Jack yesterday, where we were very like kind of in similar places at 22 years old. And I told him, I was like, you know what, the thing that kept me going from those first couple companies like tanking was A, the fact that I'd already done it once, but B, just the overall, like I was thankful for the failure. I'm like, how lucky am I to have 2 businesses go to 10K a month before I was 23 years old? Yeah. Like how many guys get to fucking say that? Yeah, it was short-lived. Sure, it was short-lived. But I'm dealing with this kind of pain right now because I was on path to build a 6-figure company. Like, and I know like other people who are just sitting there like hating life, not liking their job, like they're in a shitty relationship, blah, blah. They're not getting any life experience out of it. My whole life experience trying to convince people to pay me, you know, anywhere from $500 to $2,000 a month, like prepares me for where I'm at now, 24, being like, okay, that was all necessary. It was all necessary. You hit on God earlier. He's going to put you in situations that you might not necessarily think you're ready for. And
it's all to prepare you. It's out of love.
It's all out of love
because he knows in order for Tamir to be able to handle all the gifts I have for him in the future, he can't do that with his current character. So I need to put him through all this shit to develop his character so I can give him all these blessings. Yeah. Right?
I have a quote that might tie this back in because it just came up perfectly. And it said, when God wanted to make a king out of David, he didn't bring him a crown. Exactly. He brought him Goliath. Your challenges prepare you for your purpose.
Exactly.
And I'm so happy, like when I make these posts sometimes and then I show up the next day and we have a show or I do something, like it's a proof of alignment that this came up again.
Yeah. You know, and you're so lucky to have these problems. like look at your life objectively from the outside. Stop being so stuck in your head. You have so much more problems in your imagination than in reality. You're living such a good life. Imagine telling your problems to some kid in Africa that his whole family just got murdered. Like, right. Your problems, you're so blessed to have your problems, and your problems are only going to get bigger as you get better.
Yeah.
They're only going to get bigger. You have a client disputing for $5K. I want a client disputing for $5 million because that means that we're going to be doing like $500 million.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're going to solve a harder problem and you're going to make more money of it. I think that's,
you're gonna lose bigger money.
And you're gonna
and that's fine because you're making much more. It's like your problem. People say, "Oh, I have this problem in my business right now. Probably when I'm at $1 million a year, I won't really have those problems." No, you will have those problems. They will be even at a larger scale, but you'll develop as a person to handle them accordingly. So it wouldn't have the same effect as it has on you right now.
100%. The recovery. It's a huge mental thing in mental health where your recovery time is that much faster. You know, we talked about like a really bad breakup I had when I was like 19 or 20. Mm-hmm. Every girl that did not work out after that, the recovery time constantly cut in half. Yeah. The first one is bad. And it's the same with business. The first business that failed was bad. It was a 3 to 6 month, like no movement, just trying to get back to the life I had. And same in relationships. You just want those feelings again, right? But then you realize get like stillness and really taking the time to listen to yourself, like you get the perspective like, oh, like how thankful am I to have like such a great relationship for a year where I learned so much. And now I know heading into this next one or a great business that scaled to that number and I know what worked well and what didn't. And now in my next situation, I get to avoid those mistakes I made. They're going to come up. The opportunities to make those mistakes again always come up. You're going after you pass a challenge or after you fail and then you're presented with the next opportunity for success. Yeah. You're going to see signs of your old self presented to you. And that is like we talked about, like I'm a big believer, like that is God saying, "Hey, we've been through this before. I'm testing you again. Are you ready? And how are you going to change?" And the process of you handling this problem needs to be completely different from the way you handled the problem last time because that time didn't work. Yep. You've tried 1,000 things that didn't work. Now here's another opportunity to do it again. Another thing for people just paying attention, like it's like a lot of times when we set these intentions, we set these big goals or we set these things that we want to fix in our life, like God will tap us on the shoulder, then he'll nudge us and then he'll hit you over the head until you learn your lesson. And a lot of people know a year ago I got hit over the head. So, and it turned into, now I'm here at Marbella interviewing 7-figure entrepreneurs, like, and it's beautiful. And it's the life I always, have always set out and intentionally knew I was capable of living. But it took taking those really hard lessons and like constantly, even being faced with those failures and ignoring them, thinking I had it figured out. Now we step back and we go, no, we got to change. You got to completely change. You got to leave your old self to get your new self. And it's a constant commitment to evolve it. People don't like change. Change is the most uncomfortable thing in the world, right? So now I think a good time for the question now would be, are you afraid of anything?
Of course I'm afraid. Now I'm afraid of a lot. I'm afraid of a lot of stuff, but I guess my mind doesn't see fear as a bad thing. That exactly means that you're exiting your comfort zone, that this is exactly what I should be doing. When I'm afraid, when I'm nervous, that's exactly what I should be doing, because that fear, after I go through that and I accomplish that and I realize that there isn't something to be afraid of in the first place, I get a bit closer to that Tamir 2.0, 3.0 version, and I see it as a great thing.
Yeah. Somebody wrote out, I made a post about this once, where it was like, if you spell out fear and you see what it stands for, it's like false evidence appearing real. And if you can really think about that, like, hey, this anxiety I'm feeling, I'm creating. Why am I creating this anxiety? What am I insecure about? And initially, you'll know, like when you'll hit that point, like, oh, I'm fearing this because maybe I sold this client on a testimonial that wasn't mine, or like, hey, like there's a lot of times there's some real shit there, like where it's like, maybe your fear is validated because you maybe had some sense of false evidence somewhere, that you made the world appear real to the world. And now you need to go address that. Until you address that, you're not gonna be able to move forward. If you're sitting here going around town, like I always say, like a lot of the guys who make a lot of money don't talk about all the money they make, right? They are sitting in rooms and they're some of the quieter, more intelligent people, and people just pull it out of them, and naturally you'll figure like, oh, he's got 50 clients and he's got a program paying X amount a month, like, and they naturally come to that. But the guys that are like lying about making 10K a month, lying about 20K a month, lying about this, they're the ones full of anxiety and fear. The guys really doing it are the chillest people in the world. Like, don't hear me talk about numbers. I'm comfortable with where I'm at. I don't feel a need to prove anything to anyone. I know this is where I'm at. Where you're meeting me today is not where you're going to meet me a year from now. So whatever number I tell you now, it's a disservice to myself to put myself in some sort of box, because I know like that person that's asking me this financial question, they're asking me that out of insecurity, and they're trying to level up with kind of where I'm at. And it's like,
they're trying to fit you in the box of where you stand, and if they're above or below you in a way when that doesn't even matter. Like, why do we measure status by digits on a screen in an app on a device on your phone?
Yeah, like why can't I just be, why wouldn't you just hang out with me for my authenticity? Why wouldn't you just hang out with me for me telling it straight? Why wouldn't you, and those people do. That's the other misconception we get when there's a lot of people, and we think the only people coming to us are coming to us about money, financial situations, whatever, where they're trying to status us. Those aren't people I hang out with. Anybody listening to this who has ever come to me with questions like that, if we don't hang out anymore, that is your pinpoint why. All you care about is if the business is real and blah, 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 blah. Like, no, homie, it's legit. I don't feel a need to tell you all the time. And that's like, it's a disservice. I'm telling the people that it matters to. And that's just it.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also do believe that there is a place and time to establish yourself as an authority,
100%.
So you can do the service to other people. If I were to tell all this, if I were to give all this advice, insight, whatever you want to call it, but people don't know the kind of deals that we're doing, it would go in one ear, go out the other, and then I would be doing a disservice to the entire audience.
100%.
So sometimes aspects you have to, number drop so people actually listen, so they get the most value out of it, so they can apply it in their own life. And like, if someone applies one piece of advice here, maybe just about like reflecting and thinking for like 4 hours, if they would have not listened to that because I wouldn't have number drop, they would have not got all that value, not have changed their life for the better. So there's a place and time for everything, but you have to use it strategically.
Agreed. I love that. Cool, man. Now, what's one question you have for the host?
One question for the host, man. One question that I do have is, last night we were talking about that kind of comedy show, and I want you to explain to our audience, so this can be the first moment that you're starting to actually bring this into the world, because I think this is a cool idea, even if you can't articulate it perfectly because it's a new idea. I want you to share with the audience the idea about the kind of comedy show, Shark Tank kind of idea, with
the new way of Shark Tank that I want to build.
The new way of Shark Tanks, ladies and gentlemen. Jack Hayes right here. He's going to explain to you the new Shark Tank.
Yeah, and I'll even preface it. I'll put this out there. The first episode will be shot at the co-work space we open by the end of the year. And yeah, so for those of you listening to this, one of my favorite concepts that I found, it also goes back to, you can do the work for 10 years and nobody will know your name, and nobody will even know you exist, but you'll do such great work that eventually the world finds you. That was Kill Tony for me. So there's a comedy show called Kill Tony. Tony Hinchcliffe, you know him from Netflix. He roasted Tom Brady. It's the most legendary roast of all time. Small note on that he talked about on a podcast that I'll let the world know. Netflix, super corporate, big wig company, blah, blah, blah. They told him, hey, you only get a minute because Tony's like one of those more like, whatever. Like he is outspoken. He gets up there because he's a killer like us. And he goes, I'm the best roaster in the world. I used to do MTV roast. He's like, I do not get a minute while all these other comedians that I do, just as good numbers as, get 5 minutes and get a special spot on stage. They put Tony in the crowd next to Dana White and some other guy, and they left all these comedians on the professional stage. Tony gets up there and to roast Tom Brady, and he walks around and he roasts every single comedian and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And it was the most powerful thing, and nobody in Netflix even knew they were doing it. It was a live show on Netflix. So anyway, that's why I'm motivated by Tony Hinchcliffe. But anyway, Kill Tony, this show, it comes in and they have a show where there's a bunch of comedians in a bar next door, and they go around with a hat, and all the comedians can put their name in a hat. And then on his panel, it has him, professional comedian, and then 2 or 3 other celebrities. Usually one of them's also a very respected comedian. They go up there. Then they pull your names out of a hat, and you get 1 minute. And it can be absolutely anybody. And then you get 1 minute to give your comedy, and then they get to ask you whatever questions they want for like the next 3 to 5 minutes and get to know, who you are, how crazy your life is. A lot of comedians, it's the starving artist grind. A lot of them go 10, 15 years before anybody pays them to do a gig, right? So it's a great opportunity for comedians to get on this show, which I said I found it 10 years in. They're well past millions of subscribers on YouTube. I'd never heard of them, but they labeled it as a podcast. And I was like, why is it a podcast? I thought it was just a comedy show. And it's a podcast because they go up, they give their joke, and then they get to interview them. And if they like them and they like their personality, then these comedians will be like, hey, can you open for me next week?
Yeah.
Or we've got this secret show. Come on the secret show next week. I'd love to help you get your career started. And then they have regulars on the show. So that's like the golden buzzer thing. We talked about, we were listening to Cam Patterson last night, that black kid that was just so funny.
Yeah.
And all I did was show you Cam Patterson because he was one of the guys that I listened to, that I watched get the golden buzzer. Now he's a regular on the show. So to answer your question, my concept playing off that is we have a similar panel, but it's either guys in, let's call it private equity, or it's going to be a very authentic show to me. So it's going to be A players from the network that multiple years later that have extra capital that want to invest in people and invest in products too. But we are investing in people as investors. I have a group of friends that has an extra $10,000 to $100,000 that could really help somebody at a 20, 30% return on investment. And so we would do something similar where we have a bunch of entrepreneurs put their name in a hat. Yep. We invite entrepreneurs to come watch the show that want to learn about business or want to learn from the panel, about business. It could be people just obsessed with business, but essentially similar concept. A bunch of entrepreneurs put their name in a hat, and we randomly call them up and we give them basically a 90-second elevator pitch on what their service is. Very similar to Shark Tank, but without the issues with Shark Tank is people go on there just to use it for the audience.
Yeah.
I'm cool with this starting as a small local show before. I'm not going to wait till I have 1 million subscribers on YouTube to launch this, because then I know people are only going to apply. And as soon as they share their business on my YouTube channel, they're not going to want the private equity money. They're just going to go use the monetary money.
Yeah.
Great. Not to say there's not a place for both, because it helps the private investors to say, okay, now this product has millions of views and they have my money, right?
Yep.
But the idea would be for entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs, showcasing, trying to find that next, I call it creatively ambitious idea. I want to talk to creatively ambitious people who are not only have good products, but also are great people. So we'll ask them, some of those out of pocket questions like, oh, like, hey, you've been married 10 years. What happens if your wife cheats on you with your business partner tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's not on the internet. Nobody's willing to talk about that. But if I'm going to invest $100,000 in you, I need to know how you're going to handle that situation theoretically.
Yeah.
Hey, your wife's pregnant. You're going to have a kid in 9 months. What are we going to do when that takes place? Because maybe we're fathers at that time. As a father, I know you need to commit a certain amount of time. What is your game plan for that? Have you prepared for that? Well, but my product does $1 million a year. We're going to be okay. I'm not investing in you because as soon as your top priority takes place over that, your kids, everything, like now you're not fully invested in the business. And I don't necessarily want to invest in that. Maybe somebody does, but really like the idea would be to launch a very similar-ish show that just highlights entrepreneurs and gives people that maybe don't have personal brands already to get their ideas broadcasted to the world. And then by being a good person, they get the opportunities that wouldn't exist if they were just going in there to get rich quick. I want to weed out the people who are getting rich quick. If you're really ambitious, you're flying out to Florida. You're going to do that show. All these comedians that fly out from LA that are already doing gigs but understand the power of Kill Tony, they go put their name in the hat and they have just as good a shot as the guy who started comedy a day ago. So now we're going to have entrepreneurs who started their agency yesterday or their business yesterday, and we're going to have entrepreneurs who have been in the year been in the game 5 years. And like you said, like the company you're building could be a great opportunity for somebody like you to walk in and be like, oh, wow. And then you could like have your sales call right there essentially and start prospecting them and be like, oh, well, so what's not working so well? Like you are doing 5 million, great pitch, by the way. I see you're doing, how many sales reps do you have currently? What are they producing? Are you paying them a flat retainer? Like what does that look like? And then now by solving their problems live on stage, the entire audience will also get to kind of solve those problems and it'll still be like a podcast. So I'm glad you asked me that. That's a really cool one because I haven't got to formulate it. It's just been in my notes. I even really ambitiously, like when I wrote it out like a year ago, sent it to some bigger agencies, but I don't think they read it. Thank God. They left their fault for not opening my DM.
Well, what are you going to call it?
What am I going to call it? Good question, man. Good question. Beta name.
Off the cuff. Putting you on the spotlight.
Yeah, man. It'll be under the weekly profit blanket for sure. The weekly profit will be
and will happen weekly.
Right. It'll happen weekly. It'll stick along the same lines of the show. Eventually this podcast, like I said, especially if I keep doing like, I might even do like a 1 minute episode thing where like you'll hear it the podcast every day. But yeah, it'd be under the weekly profit blanket. It wouldn't be the worst name, but we definitely would have to. So
look, guys, if you want to apply for the weekly profit show, and if you like the idea, comment weekly profit below. We'll validate the idea, and
you'll be our first people in the hat.
We'll pick five. We'll pick 5 people that can pitch their business. And what happens, what's in it for you is if you pitch your business to one of these VC guys, you have probably the possibility to get up to 100K in equity funding for your business.
Yeah.
And I think, bro,
I'll
you
even take it a step further. If you guys want to start this show, quote unquote, virtually, but start gaining the traction, comment and then send us a video of your elevator pitch on DM. So me and Tamir will be tagged in the DM. Shoot us a DM of what you're working on, and we'll find a creative way to publish it, especially if there's a lot of traction. And I might start doing that kind of at the end of every show. That could be like a cool concept to roll in. I love that we came to this, dude. That's sick. That's actually sick. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll create like we'll create a new segment where
we created it already.
It's literally done. Like we talked about the concept is already done. Time just hasn't caught up yet. Yeah. And like, that's a great theme of like this whole conversation of like, when you're mentally there and you mentally believe you already are who you are going to become, you will get there faster. The people, the opportunities, the experiences, they will find their way to you by you not forcing the issue, just by you simply presenting the world your intentions, your ideas, your purpose, etc. I think that's fucking awesome, man. Man, we're about an hour or so in.
What time is it?
1:45, hour 15. We started at 12:30, so we're about an hour 20 minutes in. So kind of the last 10 minutes of the show. I'm trying to think if there's.
Man, honestly, I think that's a good way.
It's a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts? I think that'd be a good way for this question.
If you guys have any questions regarding anything, need help with anything, shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'll send you a quick voice note helping you out, just like that, off the cuff. Tamir.Morris, Morris on Instagram. Yeah, you got it.
Amazing. Tamir, thank you so much, dude.
Of course, brother. I appreciate it a ton.
Yes, peace.
Let's get it.
Thank you all for listening. Come back week after week. We'll be here.
Peace.
Peace.